Welcome to The Sound of Soundtracks, starring Dave Lubin.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Sound of Soundtracks. And what is that music? It's Follow the Yellow Brick Road from that old classic, The Wizard of Oz. So to talk about The Wizard of Oz tonight, I got my son back on the channel tonight, Scott Lubin, coming to you from Florida. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, our video last time was the highest viewed on the channel, so had to come back and had to support. I think we have that chemistry, so I am back.
Well, Wizard of Oz is a family movie. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a family movie. You're my family, so here you are. You're back.
I think we're starting to notice a theme here.
That's it. Well, here's the thing. So I thought that I had to do this movie. And I'll tell you why. Because I remember two movies that were actual events that came on television. One was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The other was The Wizard of Oz. And what I remember specifically about The Wizard of Oz is that, and I was often being punished. So, for not doing my homework or doing some other thing, typically for not doing my homework or doing poorly in school, which was quite frequently. So the punishment was often no television. But I would get one night off for that one night a year when The Wizard of Oz would come on TV. So whether I liked it or not, I would watch it.
If you're in trouble, then you got to do what you got to do to keep yourself from going crazy. My movie was that when I got sick when I was in camp and we never had any kind of access to movies, we'd watch all the Adam Sandler movies in the infirmary because we'd be stuck there, we'd be doing nothing. So I think that was basically like your situation back then. You had one option, it was The Wizard of Oz, and you passed it on to me. You and Mom, you passed it on to me.
Yeah, well, I think I passed on Willy Wonka and Mom passed on The Wizard of Oz. But anyway, we're going to talk about that tonight. And like I said, that was passed on by your mother. Now, this movie goes all the way back to 1939. So when we did Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you thought, well, hey, that's an old movie because, Dad, that's from when you were a kid. Well, now we're going back to a movie that's from when my parents were kids.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Here's what I find interesting. I don't even know if you remember this, but when you were in nursery school, your class actually did a performance. So what I find interesting about that, they had your class doing songs that were essentially 70 years old. Do you have any memory of that?
I do actually. I remember that we were kind of in like this basement performance room, and when I walked out, I had to act cool. I had to act like because it was a big thing. Your parents showed up to the event, and it was like, okay, I gotta have that like celebrity walk. So I'd walk in like I didn't see you and Mom like just like waving to me. I had to act like I didn't see you there. But yeah, no, I always had a fond memory of when you guys would come to these performances, and I do remember this one in particular.
I think it was the first one that you guys ever did.
Yeah.
So let's start looking at this one. So The Wizard of Oz, as I said, goes all the way back to 1939. This is a great soundtrack to do. Now, here's the thing. I do own the CD. I actually only bought this when you were a kid, and it was that was one of those ones that I did to play in the car. And so prior to that, I didn't own the soundtrack, but I certainly knew the songs because, as I said, I would watch it every year for years and years and years because it was an event. And I go back to sort of the differences in generations. My parents would always say, when I was younger, we could only listen to the radio. So now I say to you, well, when I was younger, we could only watch the 3 stations that were on television. We couldn't just put, DVDs into the machine and watch any old movie we wanted. So that was the differential. So that was the choice. The Wizard of Oz was a family night movie. The family would get together and watch on a little color TV. And over the years, the color TVs got larger and we got more of them. But that was The Wizard of Oz. So what are some of the things you remember about maybe your first time watching the movie? I think you said your mother introduced it to you.
Well, funny. I mean, just to build off of your point before, because I just thought it was funny. So you say 3 channels you have to work off of it. It's like now I get upset if I don't have all 8 NFL games right in front of me at once. So just think about like the privilege that like we have in today's day and age to be able to access anything that we want, right? And I think that this movie and the way that it was just like so glorified, it was like a performance every time it came on. It's pretty incredible. But to your point, the first time I remember this movie. I and again, mom, if you're watching this, feel free to correct me, but I think that you might have gotten the DVD, and at some point you put this on. I think that there must have been a point where I probably wasn't even old enough to comprehend watching this movie, and it was one of those that it just came on enough that it just kind of faded into my brain. But I do have these like childhood videos of me singing all these songs, and we were at the Toronto Lakes. It's like right where the Toronto downtown is, the harbor, right? And I was singing these songs, and Phil was recording these acts of like me singing it and not acting all goofy. That's what I remember about this. Is I remember me as a kid always going and having a good time, just kind of like mocking the songs, having a good time with it, and like kind of making it my own.
Well, these songs, like I said, they've been sung for for 70 or 80 years. So it is a good soundtrack to review. And yeah, let's start looking at the music on this and
Yeah.
see what we think of it. So the first thing that's available, we are going to condense this a little bit and get to sort of, like, I guess, the main songs. And we'll start off. We will talk a little bit about the overture. That's as the credits are rolling, and it's a standard overture. You hear little musical pieces from the songs. It's that big band Broadway sound, but it's a formula that introduced musicals for many years, and many for for I mean you go back and you think about musicals that followed, whether it be West Side Story or The Music Man or anything like that. They all start off with that little introduction of the music, and but this one had that really old movie feel.
Yeah, it's funny listening back to this one. Yeah, kind of like you said, it really does remind you of those old timey kind of sounds. It sounds like NFL films music. You know, like when you watch like those videos of like Sammy Ball like, throwing a football. It's like same kind of vibe. It's a lot of like trumpets and those like high pitched instruments that just seem to record well on their antique audio recording software back in the day, and it really kind of makes you feel like you're a part of that time, which it's pretty neat. Obviously, from your parents' time, even a little bit before then, quite frankly. So this music just really kind of brings you back into that point in time um, when it was a different kind of music that kind of rang to people's ears.
So we go into the second song, and it's a total classic. It's a song that was considered by the American Film Institute the best movie song ever. Recently, I did an Oscar show with Larry, my brother, your uncle, and I named this the second best song ever in a movie that had won the best song Oscar. And by the way, this movie won the best soundtrack, and it won the best song, so it got the daily double. Those are the only two music Oscar awards. Uh, Also, just point out the lyrics of the songs are written by somebody named Yip Harburg, and the music was composed by Harold Arlen and Herbert Stothart. Okay, so just a couple little facts here. But anyway, this song opens up. Dorothy is longing for an adventure. She's gotten into trouble because her dog Toto has gone into Miss Gulch's yard, and she's afraid because Miss Gulch is going to come after Toto. And Aunt Em tells Dorothy, well, go to a place where you don't get into any trouble. And then she sings Over the Rainbow because she thinks if she goes over the rainbow, that's where she's not going to get into trouble. But when she goes over the rainbow, as we know, she does get into a lot of trouble. And then this song basically then just flows perfectly. It's you've got this beautiful song sung really nicely by Judy Garland, and then it goes into that music of Miss Gulch coming on the bicycle to come get Toto. So that was the scene.
Yeah, no, and it was a good scene. I think the number one thing I remember about this one is just how they remade it. Was he Samoan? Was he Hawaiian? The guy who went and like rewrote this. I mean, his version was really good too.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that and it has been redone, but that's the most famous one. Raffi something.
Yeah, and I think you and Larry brought up this version of the song, and I thought that one was really good too. And so is Judy Garland's. I mean, it's just incredible music. It's the kind of music where after someone dies, you can listen to it, like really get emotional. Obviously, if a pet dies, they do have a saying that your pet crosses. I believe it's Rainbow Road or something. That maybe
Rainbow Bridge. Yeah.
Rainbow Bridge. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the Mario Kart, Mario Kart stage. But Also pretty good scene if you ever play Mario Kart. But yeah, I mean, just a really cool song. Definitely kind of gives you some vibes into the afterlife a little bit. Reminds you that life is, perhaps eternal, and it goes after, long after we die. Perhaps our souls move on. There's a lot to it. So, really beautiful song.
Well, I kind of think of it more of a song as a song of hope. If maybe things aren't going so well for you, you think, hey, just be patient somewhere over the rainbow. Hey, one day things will get better. And that's that. I don't like to think of the death thing so much. I like to think of it more.
Maybe that's an underlying, maybe that's an underlying component of depression. Who knows?
All right, let's get to the next one. Come out, wherever you are. It's sung by Billy Burke, who plays Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. She's, of course, the good witch as compared to the bad witches of the West and East. So we have to go. There's actually a little bit of time, a little bit of a lapse in between song 2 and song 3 because Dorothy goes. She meets Professor Marvel. Then she goes back. The house gets blown over to Oz. So all that stuff happens. And so then the house gets blown into Oz. Of course, while the house is being blown away, she sees all her family. She sees the farm aide helpers waving to her in the window. But then, of course, she sees that scary scene where Miss Gulch turns into the witch, and that's always a scary one when you're a kid. I remember that was always terrifying. But anyway, so then she lands, and then we find out there is a good witch, and Billy Burke does a really nice job to basically, in her little perfected fairy voice that she does, and she helps to slowly introduce the Munchkins. And it's at this point, of course, where that transition happens, where the movie goes from black and white to color.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go off of this one, I mean, this song really reminds me of what it's like to, get a new job or get a new girlfriend, whatever. At first everything seems like it's so like it's going so great, and then you get these like little like red flags, but things are still okay. And then eventually it turns into like the Miss Gulch music, and it's like everything is just going berserk, and you realize that you can't, get anything going, whatever, right? So I think this song's kind of funny. It's like that, everything seems so great when it first starts, and it seems like when she goes through the house, everything's good. She's seeing all this cool imagery, and then all of a sudden you see Miss Gulch, and she's turning into a witch. So definitely a fun song for sure.
So this actually starts a whole barrage of songs because then come out wherever you are, then goes into It Really Was No Miracle. And that's, again, Dorothy, Judy Garland. She's just kind of explaining that, hey, I didn't really do that much. I just happened to go in my house and happened to land on the witch. And that's how it went. So she was pretty honest about it. You got to give her credit there.
She made a mistake.
So then that goes into We Thank You Very Sweetly by the Munchkins. And now the Munchkins all come out and they're very grateful for Dorothy saving them from the witch. And that really was quite a scene. You see all about how you mean all these scenes are bringing how many Munchkins there are in the Munchkin land. And if you know some background about the movie, it was quite an ordeal to get all these actors to play the Munchkins and get it organized and everything else. But so they do We Thank You Very Sweetly, and then that goes into that old classic Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. So yeah, that's that was your introduction to the Munchkins, and you get the elation that the Munchkins felt because their terror, the witch, is dead, and they don't have to worry about that witch anymore.
It's funny. I feel like this movie, when you kind of look at it, so we talked about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory last. We talked about Wizard of Oz this time, and their emphasis on like little people and like how they like run society. In both of these movies, they're like the workers behind everything. I just wonder if that would even like pass today. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know if you've ever really thought about that, but a lot of these movies, it seems like they've all kind of had this similar undertone where like little people are running the show.
Well, what I do sometimes see is I see that maybe people, smaller people, let's say, are we're starting to see actors like that. I think the most famous is one named Peter Dinklage, and I forget what show I think he's on Game of Thrones, which I never watched. So,
Yeah,
but I know he's on that, and you often will see him play villains. So you won't necessarily see him then and let necessarily in these like lighter type roles. Whereas I think back then it was they would put them maybe lighter roles or things like that. So
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, as for the song itself, I think, it certainly takes you through every single kind of munchkin that was in this movie. They really kind of emphasize how like each one has like a different voice. They all have like some kind of like a similar personality amongst their own group or whatever. So, yeah, no, pretty unique way to I don't know, set up these characters in the movie for sure.
Well, so then after Ding Dong the Witch is Dead, then we really start meeting, different characters in Munchkin Land. So we meet the mayor, and we have something called the Munchkin Man Melody, which is five separate songs. So there's the first one where we meet the mayor, and that's a segment called "As Mayor of the Munchkin City." No, that's the coroner. I'm getting to that.
Oh,
That's the
my
next one. That's the coroner. So we meet the mayor, then we meet the coroner, then we meet the Lullaby League. So we get a few the female Munchkins, I guess, singing like angels, I guess they're supposed to be. Then we get the Lollipop Guild, and that was always a funny scene. I remember when we were kids, we always really liked that. And then
the
Dorothy got the big
lollipop one.
lollipop handed to her, and finally we welcome you to Munchkin Land. That's all of them singing together, and it is one of the most fun routines in the movie. I think we can both say that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the voices are pretty funny for sure. Like, I what was the one with the lollipops? We represent the lollipop. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the lollipop
that
guild.
voice is pretty. That voice, that yeah, that one is pretty funny for sure. I like how they definitely take you through all the different ones and how they each kind of have like I guess like their own kind of like niche personality or something like that.
I think as a kid, I always liked the lollipop guild one the best. But when I became an adult, I had the coroner song we used to make me laugh because once in a while you hear about somebody who maybe wasn't your favorite, and you hear that song, but you also don't want bad karma, so you, you might think the song in your head, but you think it's best not to go there or something because you just never know, right?
Yep.
All right, so then that leads, of course, to You're Off to See the Wizard, which is what we were playing when we were in there, and then Dorothy's off on her adventure. She's got to go find the wizard. She's got to, hoping that the wizard can send her back to Kansas because she's done this whole adventure and she's gotten to Munchkinland. Realizes very quickly, nope, she wanted to be home.
Nope, exactly. She wanted to be home. I don't think she wanted to be there. I think if I woke up one day and I was in Oz, I'd perhaps panic a little bit. I might think I was on a bit of a psychedelic drugs type trip or whatever. Sorry, YouTube. So I think I think in the sense of this movie, like I don't know if I'd be able to handle the kind of world that the way that she handles the whole situation is pretty impressive. With the high spirits and everything. But yeah, no, definitely interesting part of the movie.
So then she goes on her adventure. So the first one she meets is the Scarecrow, played by Ray Bolger. And he does the first of three segments done by the three friends that she meets. She meets the Scarecrow. He does If I Only Had a Brain, because she gets him out of the cornfield and off of the stick that he's stuck on, and he's kind of a clumsy dude, but unfortunately doesn't have a brain. So she comes up with the idea, hey, why don't you come with me? Because maybe if the wizard can send me home, he can get you a brain, Scarecrow.
God, a lot of people don't have brains.
Well, seemingly so.
That's what they say in the movie.
So I mean, all three of these performances were fantastic. All three actors did great with this. Ray Bolger, it's lots of fun watching him do this performance, and he's and his excitement to go with Dorothy to go meet the wizard. It's a great scene.
Great scene. Yeah, I mean, I remember this was one of those songs I think I used to like singing as a kid. My light keeps going off. It's very weird. I need to get a new one of those. But yeah, I remember I used to like the Scarecrow song. He was always probably everyone. I think he was most people's favorites of the three, interesting fellows that she went like venturing out with. I'd say like the number one thing I remember about him was just like the fact that she seemed most sad when he was the one who was going to be gone, and the rest of them, it just seemed like, she said this like right in front of them. like I'm gonna miss you most of all. It's like, oh well, thanks,
Yeah, no,
Um,
really, really, she
definitely had
showed
the highest
favoritism.
bond with him, I guess. Yeah, if you kind of showed favoritism, it's like, oh well, thanks. We just like risked our lives with you, and you just kind of spat in our face. But all right, yeah, sure. Screw
Yeah,
you. I
no,
hope you.
my personal favorite was the lion, actually.
Oh, really? You like the lion? Well,
I
'cause
always liked the Cowardly Lion. He was always my favorite. He's the only one who gets two songs, but we'll get there. So then we meet the Tin Man. So he needs a heart, although he seems to have, pretty big heart. I mean, whereas you kind of saw that the Scarecrow didn't have much, didn't seem to maybe be the most intelligent in some ways. Uh, right away, you felt like maybe the Tin Man was a sensitive sort. But anyway, he's they meet him. Just like she had to get the Scarecrow off of that Scarecrow stick, she had to oil the Tin Man to make sure that he could, get to the wizard, and with his big axe, which comes in helpful later when they're having to fight through the forest to get through the witch and everything. But he does the performance of "I Only Had a Heart," and again, it's Jack Haley who plays this particular part. The original performer was actually Buddy Epson, and he had trouble with the costume, the paint, and that's why they had to replace him with Jack Haley. But Jack Haley did the role quite well. Can't imagine anyone else but Jack Haley playing it, so it all worked out. And Buddy Epson went on, of course, to play in the Beverly Hillbillies. So whatever happened to him as a result of the paint, he must have been just fine because he did a TV show about 20 years later. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, if I only had a heart, that's another one of those songs I think I used to sing a lot as a kid. Definitely pretty solid song. The one that I don't think I sang that much as a kid was the one with the line, ironically enough. But I always found that the Tin Man of all three of them kind of looked the coolest, just because like the outfit was really neat. The silver paint on his face. That's interesting. I didn't know that he had problems with the paint. Was he like allergic or something?
something like that happened. Yeah, he had some kind of bad reaction to the paint. So
Yeah, they had some different issues on that movie. I think the witch like broke her finger in like an elevator or something. So, when you do these movies back in the day, there was definitely some problems for sure.
well, it was always hard to, to do these kinds of things. They didn't have the kind of special effects they do now. But look, even when they did have the special effects that they do now, there was still problems. There Vic Morrow dying on the set of the Twilight Zone. That's a whole other issue. But yeah, here's just play a little bit of that lion song we got here.
It's sad, believe me, Missy, when you're born to be a sissy without the bit.
Yeah, no, I definitely,
Show
definitely
my
remember that one.
prowess be.
That's "If I Only Had the Nerve," and I always used to joke that our dog Casey, an American Eskimo, I used to think he
I thought
was
you were gonna
somewhat
say
like the
that.
Cowardly Lion because the lion, when you first meet him, he comes out and he's all tough with them, and as soon as they challenged him at all, he backed off, and that was Casey. He would come in the house and he'd bark at you like he was this tough watchdog, and if you challenged him at all, he'd go run in his crate.
Yeah, no, I remember that about him for sure. Albeit I was pretty young at the time, but yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of cowardly lions. They like to show off this like big face in this world, and then the second that you get to know them, they really are. They're kind of like weak and they're scared, and you know, I always found though that character was a little bit annoying, just because like I just found that he got on my nerves. He was like just kind of slowing down the pace of the movie sometimes, and I don't know. He of the three of them, he was probably my least favorite. But as you said, he did have two musical pieces in this movie. So clearly, they emphasized an importance on his character development, perhaps the most.
I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the wizard yells at him and then he runs and jumps out the window. I always like that scene. We used to look forward to that. So then the next song that comes on is the "Merry Old Land of Oz." So this one's kind of interesting. So they finally get to Oz and they get to the castle, and so the character, and we don't know who he is, answers the door, and he's not sure if they can go. First, he doesn't know if he's going to want to let them in, and then he does let them in, and then he's not sure if he's going to let them see the wizard. But anyway, he does that "Merry Old Land of Oz" song. But I'm going to have to admit something to you, Scott. I did not learn until much, much, much later as an adult. I'm going to say I was in my 30s before I ever realized that that character was indeed the wizard. It was the same guy. But so
Oh,
the guy who answers the
I
door
didn't
and
know
does
that.
that
Oh,
Mario
wow.
Land of Oz, that's Frank Morgan. So he plays Professor Marvel. He plays that character, and then ultimately he plays the wizard. So the debate I've had with people, and I've looked, and it's not really resolved. Is he playing a different character, or is it actually he's answering as that guy? And the reason he doesn't know if he's going to get to see the wizard is because then he's going to go in and be the wizard, and he doesn't know if he wants to go in and be the wizard. I think at that point he does know he's the wizard, but I'll tell you, I watched that movie over and over and over. Kids, I had no idea that was Frank Morgan until I was an adult.
I mean, you're teaching me something new here too. The thing I remember about this particular scene is that the guy starts like crying, and it's like it's an ungodly amount of tears that's like falling down his face, and that always like kind of like resonated with me. There's a NFL player, No Sean Marino, and he cried like that, and they compared it to that scene.
We're going to talk about only just one more song here because believe it or not, that's all there was. That was
Oh,
the other song you were referring to, sung by Bert Lahr. That's If I Were King of the Forest, and that was when they're about to go see the wizard. The lion is all excited because he thinks with his new courage, he then can become king of the forest. He's going to talk about all that he's going to do. And again, he goes into his whole scene where he's going to be a tough guy and a tough lion. And as we know, he didn't get that courage right away because the wizard gave them an assignment.
that's right. They had to go and take down the witch. So, this one I think was done when he was getting his haircut. Was that it, or am I thinking about a
Uh,
different?
no, so this the Mario Land of Oz. They were getting the haircut, and she was getting her hair
Okay,
done, and
right.
they were getting they were getting fixed up by the people in Oz because if you're going to go see the wizard, they had to look their best.
Yeah, yeah, no, okay. That definitely does ring a bell. I mean, he that I don't know. I always had mixed opinions about that line. Like I said, um, yeah, I mean, he definitely had one of the biggest character developments in that movie. I don't know if I have that much of an opinion on this particular song though, because I'll be honest, it just didn't really like resonate with me that much to the point where I like remember much about it.
Yeah, as I said, I've seen this movie so often that I can't help but remember all these songs and all these scenes and all these little details. So, honestly, I haven't watched this movie from start to finish in a heck of a long time. But I kid you not, I probably watched that movie every year for probably something in the range of 10 years straight. Because as I said, Scott, it was an event, and then we talk about it at school the next day. Did you watch The Wizard of Oz last night? So that's what it was like when The Wizard of Oz was on. So this was the last song in the movie because then you get the whole rest of the film, which is the wizard gives them the assignment. They have to go get the broomstick from the Wicked Witch of the West, or is it the East? I can't even remember. They manage to do that because Dorothy throws the water on her and she melts, and they then take the broomstick back. And then it turns out that he's not really a wizard, but he comes up with different ways to satisfy what the Tin Man, Lion, and Scarecrow wanted, of course, and I guess
The
we can talk
heart, the
about
degree, and oh, what was the lions? It was
metal.
in a metal. Ah,
He
yeah,
gave the
yeah.
Lion a medal. He gave the Tin Man what he called a testimonial, which was actually a clock shaped like a heart, and he gave the Scarecrow. Do you remember what he gave the Scarecrow for a brain?
A diploma, I think.
That's right, because once you have a diploma, then you've got your intelligence. So that's why that's why. So hey,
Everyone thinks,
all
eh?
hey, and that's why I'm going to say, all you kids out there, you stay in school.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That way you'll
So
get your
Dad, okay,
diploma.
question here. If you had to get one of those three gifts, which one would you want the most?
I think I would have gone for the medal.
The medal. Okay. I think I
Yeah.
would have gone for the clock. Although, are you really gonna wear around a clock with like a heart? I don't know. Maybe a diploma so that, I could have just saved 4 years of school and just gotten a job.
Yeah, no, yeah, you know what? Your mother and I could have saved some money too had you done that. So just gotten a diploma from like the back of a matchbook university. So any other final thoughts on this movie and this soundtrack?
Um, I'll be honest, it's just one of those movies that just seems to stand the test of time. When I have kids one day, they're gonna see this movie, and I'm sure that those kids may see that movie, although it's hard to say. You don't know generations down the line. You'd assume so. like I think I'll show my kids this movie, but you just don't know how this is going to ultimately pass along. A lot of the movies that come out, you just you think that there are all these generational films, but we just don't know. We just don't know.
Well, it is a classic, so I definitely wanted to cover it. And as I said, I thought it was a good idea to kind of follow up Willy Wonka with you with this one because it was kind of that other family movie that would be on frequently on television. It was kind of more like an event. So, got a rating for me out of 5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, actually, as I was going through this and kind of just, I'd say this one was like a 4 out of 5. I wasn't as as I said in the last video, I wasn't as high on the Willy Wonka one, but this one there is something about these kind of like old school musicals and just Somewhere Over the Rainbow is just such a good song that I think that alone can carry it pretty far. But I also like the intro into the movie, which is really good. Definitely some different memories associated with the songs of the fellows that she goes on the trip with and all that. So yeah, I'd give it a solid 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I'll go a little higher. I'll give it a 4.5. I mean, most of the ones I've done 4.5 or 5. But I mean, I guess that's why I'm doing these first is because I like these, right?
Yep. No, it's much easier to talk about something that you like as opposed to something that you don't like. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that some people would have things to say if you didn't like albums that they did in fact like.
Well, albums is a little bit different. It's there you get. But with this, as I said, because I'm just doing one at a time, for now anyway, I'm picking things I like. We'll see how many of these we get through.
Yeah.
So that's all we got for you tonight. Scott, thank you for coming on the show again. Hope you're going to do this with me again soon.
Oh, you know it. Maybe next time we'll do a more modern track. We'll find one that can associate with all of you youngsters watching.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea because we've done now 3
You're
from the
all young, by the
70s.
way.
Well, we've done 3 from the 1970s, and now we went all the way back to 1939. There's lots more of these to do, so hope you join us next time. Until then, good night, everybody.
Good night.